Hey, it's Fox from Inferno Fox Gaming. So, me being an old man yelling at cloud, I've been playing video games for almost 40 years now. The first console that I really got into was the original NES, also again when I was a kid. This was also on and around the 1980s, a time period where PG movies were stuff like Poltergeist and Gremlins. And we also had wonderfully traumatizing children's movies like A Never-Ending Story, The Secret of Nim, and A Land Before Time. A lot of the games released around this time, well, looking pretty basic and pixelated, did manage to scare my brothers and I in good measure. Okay, let's be honest, they probably scared me more than anything. So today I'm going to go over what I believe are some of the scariest NES games. Do note that I'm not going to count any of the games that we either didn't play as kids or for some reason we didn't really find all that scary. This means games like Friday the 13th, Nightmare Before Elm Street, or Ghosts and Goblins won't be on this list. We played these, but kind of found the gameplay itself on them either too stupid or difficult to truly find the various environments and graphics scary. This also means that games like The Uninvited, Zombie Nation, or Ghoul School won't count on this list either. Some of these entries do look genuinely scary, but since we never played them, it really wouldn't be fair to count it here. Also, this is not going to be in any particular order, simply because I find each of them quite scary for a number of different reasons. The first entry that I'm going to mention is the Famicom game Sweet Home. This is the only one on the list that I didn't play as a little kid, simply because it only released in Japan back in December of 1989. It was translated via fans JMN and The Siege back in 2000, and I played it around that time as well. This is actually a game based off of a movie of the same name. I know, I'm surprised too that I enjoyed a game based off of a movie as well. And it's a Capcom turn-based RPG that's known to have sort of been a forerunner to the Resident Evil series itself. Some of the environments and sprites, as well as the spooky "you must explore the mansion" story, is scary. But this one scared me even as an adult when I played it because of it playing on my RPG sensibilities. With there being a limited number of health recovery items, as well as permadeath, knowing that every fight could be the end of the party of 5 characters, or maybe even 1 or 2 of them, was scary in of itself. Not only that, but there are traps and hazards in the main overhead area that could cause damage and kill characters just outright. Now, how has this scary-ass RPG not had an official translation yet for North America? Come on, get on this, Capcom. And next up, I'm going to be talking about Maniac Mansion. Now, this one's not really an inherently scary one, unless, of course, you're with PETA and you got issues with hamsters getting microwaved. Like the previous title with RPG mechanics, we as the players, really put ourselves in the 3 heroes' shoes, especially since we can select 2 of the 3 available characters. I think it was with this immersion, especially the fear of getting caught by the weird Edison family inside, that was so unnerving. But when one of these weirdos would like suddenly appear, or you enter a room and they're like there unexpectedly, I remember that giving us kind of quite a few jump scares. This sort of reminds me of like Resident Evil Mr. X or Nemesis vibes 10 years plus before those games were even released. Now, where can I get some fuel for this chainsaw that we found in the game? I'm going to mention the first Castlevania entry next. For whatever reason, the sprite work in this entry was especially scary, easily beating Ghosts and Goblins sprites and environments. This game was one of the first games that we owned and played in the summer of 1987, whereas I believe we only rented Ghosts and Goblins a year or 2 after that, so maybe it was to the fact that I was so young that added to that fear factor. Also, adding to this level of sprite and environmental detail is the well-known NES hard difficulty, especially the Hall of Nightmares right before fighting the Grim Reaper. But by far, the scariest part of the game that really scared the crap out of me when I was 4 was the Medusa fight right at the end of the second stage. Like, seriously, what the hell is this? This is like some Judge Doom Remember Me Eddie stuff right here. My buddy and fellow YouTube content creator, Feral Inferno, have bonded over this boss simply because of whom Medusa here reminds each of us of. So if anything else, this shows the bonding power of video games. The penultimate entry that I'll mention is Shadowgate. My brothers played this and Deja Vu as kids, but again, as mentioned earlier, we did not play The Uninvited. All three of these games did originally release on PC first and are quite similar gameplay-wise since they're all point-and-click adventures. I'm betting that if we did play The Uninvited along with Shadowgate and Deja Vu, I'm betting The Uninvited would have trumped Shadowgate just based on how it was when I played it as an adult a few years ago. But there's really something to be said about these games that we played as kids, and that's why Shadowgate is on this list for me. Like the similar point-and-click adventure of Maniac Mansion, this allows quite a bit of immersion, though I'd say that immersion level is really amped up with Shadowgate since it has a first-person view. The many environments are appropriately creepy, as is the creatures that the player encounters during the adventure. This overall ambiance is really well accompanied by the soundtrack, whose songs vary greatly both on the areas as well as the danger level the player is currently in. The narration does a great job of describing all of this, especially the many varied and horrible deaths the player has whenever they fail to appropriately recognize the various dangers around. And speaking of this, by far the scariest thing for 6-year-old me was seeing the scene of the Grim Reaper upon the player's death. My older brothers knew this too, and would often visit death upon me countlessly whenever we played this game, again, just to terrorize me. Aren't siblings just the best? The last entry that I'm going to mention, though, is Monster Party. This game is chock full of some levels whose environments are probably some of the more varied that I've seen in a platforming type game like this. A special shout out though to the first stage with what looks like a happy looking level up until the halfway point when suddenly it just changes into a blood-soaked horror fest. The rest of the levels range from a creepy haunted like mansion to the oddly pleasant forest that contain happy dancing zombies. The bosses themselves are quite odd as well, ranging from horror movie knockoffs like the Not Audrey 2 plant from Little Shop of Horrors to punk rock bands to even Death himself. With all the blood, macabre, and strangeness, I always found this game kind of unsettling and creepy as a kid. Watching my older brother beat this didn't change my mind, especially since, spoiler warning, the monster who the main character had been helping essentially double crosses him and ends up killing him anyway. We get to see his gruesome death right there on the screen, but it was all just a dream, right? Right? So there you have it. As part of this spooky season, I talked about some of the scariest games for me on the NES, but let me know, what are some of the scariest ones for you on this system? Tell me in the comment section below. I'd love to start a conversation with you guys, but thanks again for watching and have a great day.